So on Operation Winter Freeze that occurred February 6th through March 20th, 2021, detectives with the Organized Crime Unit began a six-week proactive enforcement operation to help reduce crimes involving aggravated assault, homicide, and shootings within the city limits. Members of the Organized Crime Unit, the Multi-Agency Gang Unit, TAC Unit, and also our Uniform Patrol Officers really began to focus and identify individuals who committed violent crime throughout the city, and we made quite a few arrests. So Operation Winter Freeze 2 was a big success. Individuals who chose to commit violent crimes, sell drugs, carry illegal guns, and prey on the citizens of Memphis were apprehended in this operation. And we're not going to stop here. We're going to continue to do multiple operations throughout the year, more operations, proactive policing throughout the city will continue. Now, some of the enforcement tactics that made the operation an overall success were enhanced street level enforcement, arresting individuals with active warrants. We also worked with probation and parole and did checks on those individuals. We saturated gang enforcement zones and just did some good old-fashioned street level policing. So here are the results of our efforts. Drug seizures, and a lot of the drugs you see spread out on the table. 8.6 pounds of marijuana, 11.60 grams of crack cocaine, 367 ecstasy pills. We also had Loratab and hydrocodone pills, 200 oxycodone pills, 8.7 grams of heroin, 7.2 grams of meth, 67 Xanax pills, 7 grams of fentanyl, 39.8 grams of other drugs, pills, and various cough syrups. Weapons. So at the same time where our state representatives are, to me, on a very scary road to pass permitless carry, we see the results of when they extended the house to the car with individuals carrying stolen guns, illegal guns, prohibited individuals carrying guns. And I'm very alarmed that our state legislature is poised to pass permitless carry, and our governor is waving around like there's a victory lap to be taken, and I think is actually catastrophic. But 74 handguns were recovered and 74 long guns. And if you think about the long guns, I mean, these are all semi-automatic AR-15 style rifles. And we see the impact. 10 individuals lost their life yesterday in Colorado. Same type weapons that our state representatives think that it should just be okay for anyone to carry those. We made 369 total arrests. 146 of those arrests for felonies. $60,000 in cash were seized in 33 vehicles. So, our officers are working hard. Of those 369 arrests, 10 were for warrants, like 146 were for felonies. And most of those felony arrests were some type of drug-related charge. And as you heard me say over and over again, guns, gangs, drugs, domestic violence are the scourge of our city. And we'll continue to do these type of operations. We're going to keep fighting against violent criminals. We'll continue to collaborate with our federal, state, and local partners. We'll continue to work with the Organized Crime Unit, the other Multi-Agency Gang Unit, our TAC Unit, Special Operations, and our Uniform Patrol Officers. I just want to pause here to just thank the men and women of the Memphis Police Department. We've lived through some incredible times here in the last 12 months. We witnessed a global pandemic. nationwide protests, and we were not free from those. We have seen the dramatic impact of the coronavirus epidemic, where we've had almost over 1,300 of our own employees that were either isolated, quarantined, or actually tested positive. So the department has really been stretched thin, and now we're doing vaccine sites, testing sites, and now we're upping our law enforcement efforts on the street. So I just want to commend our officers for just remaining steadfast and focused. And that includes our civilian employees, our dispatchers, our property and evidence technicians, everybody from our secretaries to the custodians have just really stayed focused, and our citizens should be very appreciative of that. So if you know someone that is committing crime in your community, if they're selling drugs, they're selling illegal guns on the street, they are shooting, then call us. Call us so we can help you make your community safe. You can call Crime Stoppers if you want to report anonymously. But you have to work with us because, the one thing that has been missing in my 5 years was just a robust response from the community that we needed to do something different in this city. So if you just have a small bit of information, we need that. That could be the link in solving crime. We cannot do this without the help of our citizens. And I'll pause here just to take a few questions about this particular operation, and then I'm going to transition into the spring break car invasion, so they called it. But right now, I'll pause and take a few questions about this particular operation.
I know that you mentioned kind of targeting the crimes and suspects in the most dangerous or kind of struggling areas of the city. Is this kind of specific to those areas, or is this across the entire city? Or could you just expand more upon where you guys really hit this crime the hardest?
So that's a great question. So in Memphis, since 2006, we've used something called data-driven policing. And we focus on where is crime occurring, when does crime occur, and what type of crime has occurred. And so we look at the data to determine where we need to deploy our folks. Some people call it hot spot policing. Some of that has kind of dwarfed into intelligence-led policing, and where we focus on people, hot places and hot people. And because we know that a very small percentage, somewhere around 3% of the people are actually causing the most problems in a particular area. And so we look at the data, we listen to citizens' complaints, we look at our call data, and we determine where resources should be focused. And we also focus on our gang injunction areas. But what you see in front of you, was recovered from all different parts of the city.
You mentioned the strain that COVID-19 has put on the police department. You also had to deal with a lot of strains and potential shortages regarding recruiting. Could you just speak to the direction of the police department you feel moving forward? Are the COVID vaccines helping you guys operate more normally, and are you encouraged or discouraged by the manpower that you guys have access to?
Another great question. So we probably have vaccinated at least over a third or more of our department. We're probably more in the 40 percentile range right now, and I think we'll be soon approaching 50%. So I'll give you a great example just in the recruit class. And the pandemic has brought all types of challenges just to bring, we hadn't done this in, 12 months. So the pandemic has brought those challenges with our recruiting and with our recruit classes, but we've still been able to, we never shut down. So we've still had police service technician classes. We've still had recruit classes. The challenge is we used to overlap classes, and because we have to, socially distance our recruits, we spread them out. But the majority of the recruit class has been vaccinated. And so with the department being at over 40%, we've seen our numbers impacted by the coronavirus just nosedive. And that's exactly what we wanted to see. We obviously want 100% of our department vaccinated, but we know there's still some reluctance. You think that we've gone from no vaccine to suddenly a vaccine was announced to where we've vaccinated thousands and thousands of Memphians, and that is represented in our police department. But there are 13 things I want you to think about. And a lot of times we don't put this in perspective because the only entity we tend to hold accountable is the police department. So you think about the impact of the pandemic. And what do we see from the pandemic? We saw a surge in gun sales, record gun sales, all across the United States and in Memphis. We know that we went through a time where every day we were dealing with the protests. We've had a demand for police reform and also a discussion about defunding the police. There was a reduction in jail population. And then even after that, the Shelby County Sheriff's Office was still hit with a lawsuit that even further reduced jail population, which means we're releasing individuals to the street that a year ago would have remained in jail. There was bail reform, and we're still living through that, where individuals that used to be detained, they didn't even stop. Number 7, there was no court. We've had no court for almost an entire year. So individuals that have been arrested by MPD have not been dealt with at all. They weren't kept in jail. They were not dealt with in court. And so there's been very little, almost no accountability to those that choose to commit crime. And our state representatives, they're doing a victory lap about permitless carry, to include the governor of Tennessee. We've had reduced interaction with the community. And so we've seen the results of when you actually have less police involvement, 330 homicides, 29 children victims of homicide. So for those that are advocating one position or another, they can just look at 2020 and see the results of what they think is a solution, and I don't think so. We also had no school, virtual school. Kids were out of school, didn't do anything for months, and then virtual school. So, less contact with government, police, schools, community organizations. We're still in the middle of an economic disaster. And number 13, rather disappointing response to the pandemic. So those 13 factors, I think, have really impacted our ability to reduce crime. But yet today, as I stand here, and I look at the categories that we're down in, overall crime in the city is down considerably. I was looking at the daily crime today, and we are at almost 10% down year to date. And so what's going well? Rape down 29%, robbery business down 39%, robbery individual down 23%, carjacking down 17%. So when you talk about those 4 issues of violent crime, those stats are very good. However, homicide up 36%, aggravated assault up 29%, has really caused us some issue. What else is going well? Larcenies down 15%, burglary non-residents down 40%, burglary residential down 34%. But we're still challenged by auto theft, burglary business, and theft from motor vehicle. So I just wanted to share that to let folks know that, first, your police department is working hard, and that the report card is not all bad. There's some light at the end of the tunnel. We just really got to focus on these shootings and on these homicides, but that's going to take the public to really help us.
Will operations like this, you think, make an impact on the homicide rate?
So yes, and I think that the problem, obviously I've had 5 years to think about this. I've been in a pretty hot seat since day one. Started with a protest and looks like we're going to end with a pandemic. And so, I get to sit back and assess what I think has gone well and what has not gone well. So yes, operations will continue, but if you think about it, in the height of the summer, we were in Operation Relentless Pursuit. Here's what's frustrating about that. $25,000 offered for information for the arrest of whoever killed and murdered 2 babies in January. Nobody has came forward to bring that needed information. Granted, we recovered a bunch of guns. We had, I've sat and talked to the Vice President of the United States, the Attorney General, head of the ATF, sat in the head of the director of the FBI's office talking about violent crime for 5 years. And I think the one thing that's still missing is that robust response from our community. And this is what I mean. Everybody's been saying, police, y'all need to do this, police, you need to do that. But the community's got to do their part. Government alone is not going to do it. And so homicide is a tough one because most of the people know each other. If you look at the stats of the solved homicides, it's like 60 and 70% know each other. So I talked about hot places and hot people. So if you're running around violent people and y'all are hanging around violent places, and gangs, guns, drugs, and domestic violence, you probably need to think about what you're doing different, do something differently. But we have to intervene in the lives of our young men because that's who are suspects and who's victims of homicide. I think the mayor's group violence intervention program has great promise, but the mayor can't do it by himself. Our czar is not going to be able to do it by herself, and whoever the next police director is will certainly not be able to do it by themselves without the support of the community. And I always call out the clergy. We got more churches in Memphis. Clergy, y'all gonna have to step up your game. If there's a controversial officer-involved shooting, instant protest. Babies killed, 330 Memphians killed, silence. I have a problem with that. In Memphis, we're gonna have to do better.
At the rate numbers are now compared to last year, do you think the city of Memphis is set to set another record for homicides and murders?
So I don't know. So, today, year to date, there are 52 murders compared to 41. So that's up 27%, but early on, we're up 50-something percent. So it looks like we may be trending down month to date, 8 compared to 13. So, that's down month to date. But the fact that one person has been a victim of a homicide or murder in Memphis is troubling. But, again, it's early on, but one thing I do know is that we can turn this around. But it's going to take people getting involved to turn this around. If you see something, say something. If you have information on a crime, and if you want to remain anonymous, call Crime Stoppers. And I think about the murder of Layla Washington. 2 years, somebody in our community held on to that information. And when that person finally provided that information to the police department, we're able to bring that individual to justice. And that's what it's going to take. We can turn this around, but it's just going to take all of us working together to do so.